Hello students. In previous class we have discussed about the force. In this class we discussed about the types of force. It is the topic of class 8th physics. So now we understand types of forces. So a variety of force types were placed into two broad categories headings on the basis of whether the force resulted from the contact or non-contact of two interacting objects. So firstly we understand what is the contact force. So contact force are those types of force in which results when the two interacting objects are perceived to be physically contacting each other. That means when two objects are remains in contact, then this type of the force are known as the contact force. For examples, frictional force, tensional force, normal force, air resistance force. And further we discussed in detail what is the frictional force and what is the air resistance force and tensional force. And after that, non-contact force. So non-contact force are those types of force which results even when the two interacting objects are not in physical contact with each other, yet are able to exert a push or pull despite their physical separation. For example, gravitational force and electrical force and magnetic force, etc. That means here two objects now remains in contact, and then this type of the force are known as the contact force. That means in contact force it is mandatory that two objects are remains in contact, then this type of the force are known as the contact force. And in non-contact force, that means when two objects are not remains in contact but the force is able to exert a push or pull on another object, then this type of the force are known as the non-contact force. And now we discussed about what is the contact force, and here we discussed about the frictional force. So let's we see what is the frictional force. The force acting between the two surfaces in contact which opposes the motion of one body over the other is called the force of friction. That means the frictional force are those in which two objects are remains in contact. So it is mandatory that the frictional force acting when two objects are remains in contact. Here one is the one object whose on which the force is exerted, and the second object are those which is exerted the force on the other object. Now here first object and this one is the second object. So when the force is exerted on this object, then the motion occurs in this direction. So we can say that there is a frictional force between the two contact. This one is the contact of the two bodies. So here the frictional force is occurs. So what is the frictional force? The force acting between the two surface in contact which opposes the motion of one body over the other is called the force of friction. Now next we understand what is the muscular force. So can you push or lift a book lying on a table without touching it? Or can you lift a bucket of water without holding it? So it is not possible. So what is the muscular force? So when we push an object like a school bag or lift a bucket of water, where does the force come from? This force is caused by the action of muscles in our body, and the force resulting due to the action of muscles is known as the muscular force. That means the force exerted by our muscles are known as the muscular force. So here we discussed about the what is the examples of the contact force and what is the contact force and non-contact force.